Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another SALT Project Community Open Hour for June 1st, 2023. And as if on cue, the screen share is not working. Let me try it one more time here. Thanks to all of you for showing up. It's much appreciated. Let's try it again. Oh, boy. Hey, I think we're good, right? Yeah, I think we're good. So thanks for being here. I hope everybody had a great, except for Gary, of course, who's up in Canada. For our friends in America, I hope you all had a great Memorial Day weekend. This is SALT Project Community Open Hour for Thursday, June 1st. We appreciate you being here. Where can you find SALT? Well, pretty simple. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on GitHub, Slack, Reddit, LinkedIn, the Hacks Podcast, of course. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Shout out to Derek for saying, hey, Chunga, we might want to update this, just saying. I listened to you, Derek. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Today, we're talking about SALT Project user group meetups with our friend Nick Hughes, the SALT Project community website. Docs, we're going to have a Docs working group update with Alyssa Rock. We've got another demo. We have put this off for a very long time. Shane has been extremely patient. I'm excited for this. It's the LGPO Reg for Windows demo with Shane Lee. We'll check in with Thomas Phipps and what's happening with the community forums. And then this hasn't happened in a while, in a very long time. We have a community member, an excellent community member, might I add, giving us a demo. It's Proposed Screens with Hunter Matthews. And I think really, we should probably give him an applause for stepping up and being a community member, giving a demo. We will have more community member demos coming up here on SALT Project Open Hour. Community Open Hour, excuse me, and then we'll get your questions as well. So open hour every first and third Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. That's Pacific time. Our next SALT Project Community Open Hour will be on June. Sorry, guys. That's I don't know what happened there. It's like, give me one sec. I'll have it for you. That's my bad. It's June 15th. Is our next SALT Project Community Open Hour. Not sure what happened there. Also, we need you to find bugs. Some of you have found bugs. Some of you are submitting bugs, and thank you very much for doing so. We need more of that. In fact, there have been a couple of you that submitted bugs, and you've already got your salty swag on the way to you for doing so. And we'd like to invite you to join a SALT Project working group. That's you see this here? Remember that time when we had a SALT Project page? We don't currently. So what I would ask you to do is just hit up your working group captains in Slack. We actually have a Slack channel that's called SALT Project Working Groups, and you can ask about that, or you can just hit me up directly. It's just Jimmy Chunga on Slack or schunga@vmware.com, and I can get you started the right way. SALT Project user group meetups are happening. Thank you to Nick Hughes for coordinating this and arranging this nationwide. He's putting this together. There's single day events with speakers, recorded breakout sessions, food, networking, and the like. These are in person, might I add. So if you'd like to know more, go to Spugum. That's SPUGM, spugum.com. And you can learn more there, or you can just hit up Nick. Nick is on Slack in the SALT Project Community Slack channel, and he's more than willing to help you out there. All right, well, I've got some frustrating news, some troubling news. The SALT Project community website, saltproject.io, is currently down. It is broken. It is not just kind of broken, it's very broken. So we're working to get that up and running. We're working to get that fixed. Thank you very much to both Derek and to Felipe for the great work they're doing there, and to everybody else who's working to get this stuff back online and fixed. In the meantime, while this is down, because it might be down for a little bit, view resources at the following: SALT Project Community Slack, SALT on GitHub, so the SALT Docs page, SALT documentation, that's Alyssa, the SALT install guide, SALT user guide. There's also the VMware ARIA automation config site. You can go there. That's formerly SALT Stack Enterprise. And if you're looking to get into the SALT Project e-store, the Salty store, you can also access that through itemproject.io. And while you're there, you can check out some of the cool stuff that's happening with Item Project. So again, itemproject.io. If you have any other questions about that, I'm happy to answer them. You can hit me up on, again, my email, schunga@vmware.com, or on Slack. All right, let's send it over to Alyssa Rock. Thank you, by the way, Alyssa, for taking some time and giving us an update on what's happening with the Docs working group.
All right, yeah, no problem. So just letting you know that we're opening up, we do have a meeting time, and we're keeping our normal meeting time that's in the afternoons in the US, for people who want to meet from APEC in the US. But we're opening up an additional Salt Docs working group time that will be EMEA friendly. So that's going to be Monday afternoons in EMEA and Monday mornings for the Americas. So yeah, if for those of you who might be joining from EMEA or watching this after the fact, we have a meeting time available for you if you'd like to join us. Also, we have a new working group member who's picking up on the SALT user persona project again. We had a community member working on that, but they kind of dropped from the project, which is okay. Well, that's what we're used to in open source, working with volunteers. But yeah, we have a new person picking up that project again. What that project is we are defining the different user personas and for the SALT project, and what they need from, say, a docs landing page or from the documentation in general. I can't talk today. And so basically we're mapping out our user personas and going to begin developing their user journey through the documentation so that we can design a better experience. And in order to do that, we need to do a few user interviews with members of the SALT community to just better understand your current journey, your current, what's not working about SALT for you, what's not working, how can we make the docs better to make your experience with SALT better in general. And so we're just trying to interview a variety of SALT users from a variety of backgrounds and different levels of experience with SALT and being a sysadmin too. So if you in particular know of anybody, one area that we could use a few more people to interview is people who are new to both SALT and being a sysadmin, so like a junior sysadmin or something like that, or people who are experienced as a sysadmin but new to SALT. Those are some people that we would really love to talk to because they'll have some unique perspectives. But we're also definitely open to talking to people who are both experienced in SALT and being a sysadmin too. So if you're interested in participating in that, let me know. We'll be doing those interviews probably starting the 3rd or 4th week in June, going through July, and maybe spilling into August a little bit too. All right, that's it for the docs. Back to you, Chunga.
Fantastic.
What's the best way for people to let you know? Should they hit you up on Slack or?
Yes, Slack will be great.
Okay.
So yeah, great. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, thank you. And a great question, Nick. Thank you very much. Okay, so next up, the moment we have all been waiting for. Especially Shane. It's time for a demo with our good friend Shane Lee. You're talking about LGPO Reg for Windows. Take it away, man.
Yeah, I need to share my screen. Yeah, even though I've been waiting for a while, I still procrastinated till yesterday to get this all. Didn't help. All right, can y'all see my screen there?
Yes, indeed.
I apologize for the ginormous width of it, but I tried changing the size and I couldn't get it to work in the amount of time I allotted myself. So, all right, so I wanted to talk about this new module that came out in 3006 release. It's called LGPO Reg. And to understand why this is important, I kind of wanted to explain the way group policy works on Windows. So you have this group policy editor, and I apologize, I can't make this bigger. They don't let you change the size of this, but all these administrative templates here, it's a part of how you manage settings on Windows and it keeps it enforced. Now, I'm not doing very good explaining this. But just how this works is anything that shows up here under administrative templates is actually a bunch of XML files that they have on the machine under the Windows policy definitions directory. And you can see we have ADMX files here, and these are all just XML, and they describe how these settings are set on the machine. And then under a language identifying folder, in this case, this is an English machine, so you have ADML files, which are the translations for those policies. So when you look at something under here, for example, this, all these names, all this text, everything in here is what you find in the ADML file. And then as you set something here, then it looks in the ADMX file itself on how to make that change. And so it's kind of a complicated, convoluted way of setting these settings. And that's how the LGPO module works. But in essence, all the LGPO module is doing is modifying a file called registry.pol. And that file sits in right here under Windows System 32 group policy. And then there's two. There's one for the user settings and there's one for machine settings. On this machine, I haven't defined any user, so there's nothing there. I've only been working on the machine side. So you see this registry.pol file. And as we look at that, it's a UTF-16 encoded file. There's nothing in it. There is a little code right here that doesn't show up very well in Notepad because Notepad doesn't read it. It doesn't understand it. But we figured, okay, so we can bypass all of this ADMX parsing and ADML stuff and just write directly to the registry.pol file. So that registry.pol file is kind of the source of truth for policies on Windows, for registry-based policies on Windows. So we're going to see how that works here. I wanted to show you one called widgets here, if I can get to it. And I'll show you how this works. So I'm going to set it here. I'm just going to enable this and apply it. And we should see this pop up right here. We get a little DSH key and it now says allow news and interests. And it's a D word value and it is set to 1. And if I change that over here to disabled, we can watch that set to 2 now, or to 0. Now, if I go in here into the registry and I set this to another value, I'm going to change it back to 1. And then I apply the group policy. We'll watch that value change back here in the registry to 0. So that's because the value, even though it was something in the registry, it's set to the value we want in registry.pol. And so when you do that GP update, it forces the value in registry.pol to overwrite whatever's currently existing on the machine. So we created some, I'm going to wipe that out again. So I'm going to set it to not configured. And then that goes away over here. We can look at what's there by doing so we have a new module called LGP reg, and I have this function called read reg pol, and it's going to read what's currently in registry.pol, and there's nothing there. Okay, so if I go and do this again, and I enable it, not sure if that actually enabled. Probably have to disable it. I think this is an old window I had open. Let me disable it. Now we'll read it. Okay, now it shows me what registry. This is reading the registry.pol file and parsing it out. We see we have that same registry key, a D word value, and it's set to 0. Okay, so this is an easy way to figure out when you're trying to write these. What policy setting is actually being set. So if I wanted to look at text input, for example, and enable this, and then I can run that and it tells me, okay, this is using allow linguistic data collection key. It's under this registry path and these are the values. So it's an easy way to see it. So when you go and write your state, you know what values to put. So I wrote a state for the widgets one. I'm going to remove that one real quick. And so we're going to run that state. And right now we are set at 1. So I'm going to set it, or 0. So I'm going to set it to 1. I think I just have it enabled. So okay, so it changed it from 0 to 1, and it set the registry key and it set it in the registry.pol file. So that's what that means. It did both locations. So if I look at it now here back in the registry, if I refresh, and now it's set to a 1. And to look at this in the group policy editor, you actually have to close it and reopen it. There's no way to refresh. So get to it. And now we can see it shows enabled outside of we didn't do this using the editor. So I'm going to disable it. And we'll see that change again. While that's running, once that finishes, I'm going to it. And we can now see that it is disabled. And this is going through the registry is much faster than going through the LGPO, ADMX, ADML thing. And the other cool thing about this is that you're not limited to stuff that's in group policy. I can put any registry key in here and Windows will enforce it. And another additional benefit to this is that where the LGPO module is localized, meaning if I write a state in English, that's not going to translate into a French machine or a German machine. I would have to rewrite all my states for each language. Whereas if I use this reg module, the registry doesn't change. It's always looking at those same keys. So it's more versatile in that way. So that is my demonstration of the LGPO reg module.
It was well worth the wait. Let's hear it for Shane Lee. Yeah, well worth the wait. Well done, sir. It was great. And honestly, as a guy who does most of his stuff on a Mac, it's very refreshing to see things happening on Windows, which is my preferred. Well done, Shane. All right, so let's see here. Share my screen again. One sec. Okay, so moving right along here in Salt Project Community Open Hour, I want to throw it over to our good friend Thomas Phipps. Find out what's happening in the community forums.
Hey, this one's kind of going to be pretty quick, as I actually didn't do most of the work on it. I just came in at the very end. But user was asking about using source hash and downloads, and is there any way to basically skip the cache, because they have a small hard drive and they were feeding into like an NFS system for a Pixie boot. So they were using extremely large files and basically didn't want salt caching. The short answer is no, there is no way to skip the cache currently. The long answer is that we're actually, or at least I'm going to start looking into if there might be a way to do it. But basically, this is kind of one of those, if it doesn't exist, put in a ticket. Feature requests are a good thing. We need that are going to help us figure out what direction we're going to go.
Very good. Is there anything else there, Thomas?
The only other part of it is where I'm kind of looking into if the template option doesn't exist in file.managed, checking the final file also to see if we even need to do anything, because if it's not templated, the final that is like a tongue twister. The final file is going to be the one that is in source anyway. So
Gotcha.
if it's already in the right.
Yeah, we're all a little snake bit today, Thomas. I'm sorry if I jumped on you there. Is that it, or we good? Is there anything else?
That's pretty much it.
All right. Thank you, Thomas. Awesome as always, every single open hour. I'm very, very grateful, as are we all. Okay, so this is also a very exciting episode of, is it an episode? I don't even know if we call this an episode, a meeting, I guess. Hunter Matthews is here. Hunter's been a very active member of our community, been a rock star. And we're grateful that he's stepped up and volunteered to do a demo for us on proposed grains. Hunter, the time is yours, sir. I can share the screen if you'd like. I can unshare my screen if you'd like.
Would you unshare your screen, please?
Indeed, I will. There you go.
All right. And I think it's this one. Can anybody see my screen?
Oh yeah, we got you. It's great.
Okay. The formatting is real plain because I was trying to keep this simple. There's a few slides, but I'm going to go through them really quick. Both of these are grains that I would love to see incorporated into salt. The first one is one we call OS Slug, from slugging a value into a database. It came about because we were looking for something that was really, really short, that we could easily use in both formulas themselves, and this gets used a lot in file names for us. This is basically describing families of distros. So down here, the values that we currently have across our tree are EL7, EL8, EL9. Notice that includes all of RHEL, all of CentOS, CentOS 8, CentOS 8 Stream, Alma, and Rocky. Those all come out the same as long as it's the right version. If we had SUSE 15, Leap 15, and OpenSUSE 15, that would all fall under the SU 15 family or OS Slug. The difficulty with these values is they're not easily determined programmatically. You need a map or something somewhere. This is how my team typically uses them. This is very, very lightly off of our actual several locations. We do lots and lots of includes. So as we specialize formulas for specific systems, we try to do it by using the OS Slug grain that we've created. We have some one-off Jinja code where we just have to do something different because, damn it, that one system is different, or that one family of systems is different. And then it gets used in lots of config files. So all of our sudo config files are broken up by families of operating systems. We actually started out with doing this with OS family and OS major release. That would be the obvious place to do this instead, but it was too long, and the value that you get out of OS family is often capitalized, and that was causing too many errors as people forgot what the capitalization was supposed to be. Also, Red Hat can't remember what they called their own operating system in some versions, so they keep adding different words or not, and it was just too confusing. So therefore, we created a custom grain to handle this use case. Here's the actual implementation. I cut this down. There's some comments and stuff, but you know, it's the logical thing. We're starting with OS family or OS and just creating a map. And we have it so that if we don't recognize it, we fail hard. That's a tendency of my team to prefer to fail hard if something doesn't work. Does anybody have any questions about that one? Or I know somebody's going to point out a better way we could have done it.
I'm just wondering about the differences introduced. Say, for example, the way you have it there, it would be U22 or U22 for 2204 and 2210, and there were some big differences between 04 and 10 for Ubuntu.
For us, again, this is partly peering in into our inner circle. we only use the long-term supported Ubuntu. We are primarily a Red Hat family shop. We have exactly 4 Ubuntu systems
Yeah.
due to hardware support of NVIDIA GPUs, 4 or 5 systems. And we never wanted to use the non-long-term support versions. And so we decided to cut that down to just the major release. I'm aware that that's not quite correct for Ubuntu, but again,
Well,
this was
I'm-
specific to our site.
I'm just thinking the same could be said of SUSE. Quite a difference between SUSE 15 and what is it, Open SUSE 15.
Again, there in theory, we only ever have the Leap version. That one came from a vendor. I recognize that our implementation is a little bit tuned to our environment, but I still think there's a place for something like this in Salt, because using the OS family programmatically really did prove to be a problem without a much simpler mapping of it. And that was what I was hoping to bring to the forum.
Hey, Hunter, we have a lot of questions coming in the chat.
Oh, Lord.
And I wonder if we could take some time, if it's not going to throw off your demo too bad, if we could go through and address some of those as we go.
If
so
I
we don't
can
have to
click on the
backpedal
button.
Starting with starts with Vic.
Let me scroll up. Ultra wide life. No?
So Vic is asking the question, what would it look like for rolling releases like Arch Linux?
I honestly don't know. I think we would probably, in my team, we would probably call it something like just Arch. Because we're not going to see more than one version of Arch going across. We may end up with an Arch Linux system in the next 6 months. And if we do, I'll let you know what we decide.
Nice.
But for rolling releases, I know that what is it? Gen 2 is also basically a rolling release. Arch is, I think at least one of the BSDs is internally we probably would just call it Arch or maybe A0. Both of those came up as suggestions when we were debating how to construct this grain. I'm not sure which one would work better.
And you don't use Fedora, I take it.
We are servers. We don't really have any workstations, so we don't have Fedora either. But Fedora has releases, doesn't it?
Yeah.
F27, F32, things like that.
I was wondering, what would you stick with since it's Red Hat, would you stick with the EL or would you go FC?
We would go FC because the EL family are all built off the same source RPMs, whereas Fedora is built off of a different set of source RPMs. EL is clearly derived from Fedora, and you can even, for every enterprise release, you can look up which Fedora it came from, but there's enough build difference there that we would want a different slug name. Imagine there wouldn't be a lot of value for the grain, so maybe just set to none. I'm sorry, I don't understand that question.
All right, well, that's okay. I mean, that's fine. We can
OS Finger does about the same thing. The problem is OS Finger has a lot of capitalizations, and that proved both confusing to my team, and we were making a lot of mistakes. We originally tried it with just OS Finger. And actually, the next grain may answer that question a little bit better as well. Maybe a place for simplified value. Slugbit is definitely had the plan. Yeah, the thing that I learned when I was doing database stuff is a lot of times you'll have a database value or you'll have a programmatic value, and then you'll have something underscore ID. You'll see that in the next grain that would always be code safe or SQL table safe. That's where these two grains came from. Was we were looking for things that were code safe or file system safe as well. because spaces in file systems, yes, they work, but they cause pain. Were there any other questions about this specific grain? Okay, well, I'm going to move along a little bit, and now I can't use my screen.
Uh-oh.
Okay, let's see if there we go. Hold on a second. I'm only getting beeping now from this thing.
Glad
Sure.
it's not just me.
I've also lost my mouse.
Wow.
Yeah, this has gone wholly wrong, totally wrong.
Well, I'll tell you what, while you're working on that, so when we have members of our fantastic Salt community, when we have our members do demos, we like to throw out some salty swag. Now, the thing is that Hunter, he's a G-man, so we can't give him swag because of the nature of his work. We're not allowed to give him swag. So I'm going to pick someone at random on Hunter's behalf to give you Hunter's swag. And that someone is Natalie Lee, who's here in the open hour today. So congratulations to Natalie Lee. If you send me a Slack, it's just Jimmy Chunga, or if you send me an email at schunga@vmware.com, I'm going to lace you up with some salty swag. So congratulations, Natalie. Glad you're here. Were we able to figure it out, Hunter?
I think I've got minimal control now. I'm not sure how I'm going to stop this thing.
Okay, all right.
The other custom grain that was OS Finger ID, and this addressed a challenge that we had with Slug. Slug came first, otherwise I would have named it better. And OS Slug intentionally conflates Rel, CentOS, Alma, Rocky, all those together. And 90% of the time, that's what we wanted. The config files for Rel 9 are going to be the same config files for CentOS 9, are going to be the same for Rocky 9, about 90% of the time. The rest of the time, we have to make them different. One particular example is Rel has licensing that we have to deal with. So when you're creating the repos, or when you're adding or subtracting repos, you do it a little differently on Rel than you do on all the others. The other thing was we still wanted safe values for code, Python code or something like that, where these occasionally get sucked in, and file system usage. And so here we take the value from OS Finger, but we make sure that it's code and file system safe. And so CentOS 7, CentOS 8, CentOS 9, Rel 7, Rel 8, Rel 9, all of those. So here they all have different values. And we chose longer values deliberately so that people wouldn't conflate them with the Slug. We wanted to make it very, very explicit when people were using one versus when people were using the other. It's the same kind of thing as before. This is our typical usages. So we'll include it as part of formula names. We've ended up, unfortunately, with a fair bit of one-off Jinja code in places. I'm trying to stamp some of that out. And then a lot of config files end up with the OS Finger ID buried within the file name. So when we pull these files in, we do them by OS Finger ID. OS Finger was exactly what we wanted, but we couldn't handle the spaces. The spaces were just made the code too hard. We were having to do that a lot of wrapping with a YAML in code and things like that, and people were just making mistakes. Also, Red Hat keeps changing the name of their operating system. So the name changes from Rel 7 to Rel 8 to Rel 9. They added an enterprise or a Linux in there somewhere, I forget. And so with the spaces, especially, we came out with a custom grain, and it's exactly what you think it is. We just rock off of the OS Finger ID, and then we map that to something that is what we consider code clean, file system clean. No spaces, no dashes. That's it. I'm not sure exactly how Salt, if Salt were to incorporate this, we would love that, but I'm not sure of a good way to do this programmatically. We update these maps obviously every time we incorporate a new distro into our environment. That would be inconvenient to say the least for Salt itself. But I was hoping maybe the smarter people would prevail on that one. But my general request here is, in both of these cases, I think in a couple of spots, the SALT project would be well served by adopting some code/file system safe variations of their existing grains. Obviously, these would need to be carefully documented so that users wouldn't see two grains that do almost the same thing and not understand the difference.
I understand you use LTS and somebody's pointing it out in the comments, but I was curious why you just didn't go the little extra bit and like have Ubuntu 18.04 or Ubuntu 20.04.
If I were the SALT project, I would almost certainly do that. But in our environment, we never use the LTSs, and we were trying to keep some of these as short as we could. But if I were the SALT project, I would absolutely do it as 18.04, 20.04. I just wanted to show the actual code that my team was using and put together. If I've got everybody's, this is a little bit of a mess of a slide, but in case people were curious how we actually use this stuff, this is our standardized map.jinja file. We try to use exactly the same map.jinja across all of our formulas. We base it on the older community map.jinja. I can't even read the new one. I don't understand how it works. And so you can see how we structure this. Our next variation is going to have OS Finger replaced with OS Finger ID. The standard map actually predates us creating that grain. And so I don't know if this adds anything to the rest of it. And then this is the lessons learned. They're easy to create. I'd say that Salt has very much succeeded on that part. You just create a very little bit of Python code. They are hard to name. It's hard to come up with good, meaningful names. OS Slug was kind of a disaster, but now my team knows what it means, but I'd hate to have to document that to somebody new. Salt's my one complaint would be Salt Stack's a little bit inconsistent with where the underscores are in the grain names. I have a feeling that's due to just history. And then across a tree, renaming a grain or changing the values of a custom grain is painful. If you can avoid doing it, don't do it. We did a flag day back last November, and it took me a couple of days to get our tree stabilized. But that's it. Those are my slides. I appreciate everybody's time.
Well done, Hunter. I mean, way to go, man. Let's hear it for Hunter. Good job. There are questions. There are more questions in the chat here.
Could somebody read me them? Because apparently I can't get to the chat anymore.
I'll do it. It starts with where Barney left off. Shane was talking about Slug SU15 versus Osfinger ID Leap 15. Not sure what that is. Shane, do you need to elaborate on that, or was it covered?
I just wondering why it was different. I guess Leap was more specific to a specific OS and not the general family. I kind of put that before you explain the rest of it. So
sorry.
Oh, very good. No, Osfinger ID underscore ID, excuse me, Gareth, looks like a better addition than OS underscore Slug. That's more of a comment than a question, I'm assuming, Gareth. So I'll just move.
That was a suggestion for a different name for OS Slug?
I can elaborate. No, it was just like Chunka said, it was just an observation. Just to me, like OS Finger ID seems like a better solution, better potential addition to submit for Salt than OS Slug. Just
OS Slug definitely needs a better name.
Well, I mean, just not just the name, but also like what it entails. It just seems like I could see some issues with including like some of the naming conventions that you had for OS Slug. Just thinking like, I mean, like I think David brought up the idea of like having a Fedora one. And if you
Right.
had F or FC, I could see like some other distribution or some other OS in the future, potentially starting with F or FC or whatever, and that just getting really confusing fast. Whereas OS Finger ID was a little more descriptive in terms of a little more like contextual in what it included in its information.
For us, the important thing about OS Slug that makes it useful instead of OS Finger is where we're capturing the familyness of CentOS, Red Hat, Rocky, Alma. I'm not aware that I don't know the entire Linux community, the entire Linux sphere. There may not be enough other distro family relationships to justify that as a built-in grain. I freely acknowledge that. I think there'd have to be more than just the Red Hats and maybe the SUSEs to justify that being a built-in grain. What the community might do, or what the project might do, is say, here is an example of a custom grain if you might find this useful, and then just document it well on the website, but not actually include it in SaltStack itself.
Okay, so next up, Gary Geeson. Won't something like Ubuntu 22 be problematic for distinguishing between the 22.04 LTS release and the 22.10 release?
Again, that's down to just the inner workings of my team. We never use anything but the LTS releases of Ubuntu, so we don't need to distinguish them. For us, Ubuntu only puts out one distro a year.
Gotcha. And Vic, Vic in the chat is absolutely right. I guess a lot of these are more discussions than questions, but want to be thorough. I want to make sure that no question goes unasked. Does anybody else have anything for Hunter? We're moving into our Q&A section. So again, thank you, Hunter. Congratulations, Natalie Lee. We've got some swag for you. I do want to put it out there that Eric Johnson, Terminal Image, as we call him, Eric Johnson, will be doing a demo next open hour on the 15th. So thanks in advance, Eric. We're excited to have you.
I have one last thing on this.
That's Terminal Mage.
It's Terminal Mage. Did I get it? Terminal Image? Terminal Mage.
Are either of these grains, does the group as a whole think either of these grains is sufficient that I should perhaps put them in as a ticket to be added to Salt, or are these two team specific?
I think before you put in a pull request or feature, you'd need to make it not just the LTS releases.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this a fundamental enough change to require a SEP, or is this something that could just go in without one?
Oh, this could go in without one.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say
Changing-
it doesn't require a SEP. You're not fundamentally changing how Salt works. It's a feature request.
Yeah, it doesn't require a SEP, but I would say that there would potentially be some good conversation that would come out of a SEP if you were to make one.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Like, even if it was just maybe like put in an issue for it first for discussion and just broadcast that and see what comes out of it.
Or maybe coming up with a better name.
Yeah, and you need to broaden the scope to include a lot of different platforms, like on Windows, the different versions of Windows Server versus Workstation, Fedora, the different versions, types of Linux distributions.
It sounds
If this does
how would you handle somebody like Oracle? You didn't include Oracle in any of that, for
we
example,
didn't.
even though
Yeah.
they're clones of Red Hat.
Fair enough. I will look at what a SEP would entail and see when I can get one in.
And if you're looking for a new name, Terminal Image.
Terminal
I think would be
Image.
a great new name.
Ooh,
Sorry, Eric, by the way, for destroying your username there. Terminal Paladin would probably have been easier.
I was gonna say Terminal Image is more like screenshot.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why. It's like, I don't know what I was thinking. Anyway, apologies. So, okay. Again, Hunter, thank you very much, man. It was a fantastic, fantastic demo.
Thank
If
you.
you would mind unsharing your screen for me, sir.
If I can manage it, I will do so. I think you're going to have to steal it back. I don't have
We
any
may have
mouse
to-
now.
Okay, let me see.
Well, no, wait, I got it.
You did.
Up here.
Okay, fantastic. There you
Oh,
go.
that was terrifying.
Well done. The Zoom problems continue. I'm glad it isn't just me. All right, so next up here on Open Hour, I think we've reached a time where we're at our Q&A. It seems to me like the questions have been asked. Are there any other questions about anything? Hunter's demo, Shane's LGPO Reg demo for Windows. Questions for Alyssa. Any questions you may have, now is the time to do it. Anyone?
I guess I have one quick thing. I forget exactly where I saw it, but there was some discussion on release cadence for point releases. And I know that there was some like links thrown around to the general, like, here's our release cadence for, you know, the LTS and all that jazz. But I didn't really see anything specific in there regarding point releases. And it seems to be sort of like, hey, well, you know, we'll cut them as we need them. But for folks that are trying to get things accomplished within certain timeframes in order to meet like kind of like the deadline for a point release, is there any direction that we could give to folks on that?
Anyone?
There's a graph. I'll post the link.
I just put the link in there. You might
Okay.
need to scroll down a bit to SALT project release timeline, which shows the nice graph.
So is it expected? Because I'm mostly the question. I forget who it was from initially.
It was
but
me actually.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah, like I have I've got a couple of PRs that I'm working on that I want to get into 3006.2, and on at least one of those, David, you responded as,
Yes,
I'm going to punt this to 3007 because it's not
I
going to
screwed
meet
up.
the deadline for
I screwed up.
3006.2.
I thought we were doing 3006.2 this month. We're not. From the graph in there, you can see that it's actually October. And so I was, there's a bunch of things going on in the background. And
So that's
I lost track of time as to what was
Yeah, no
going
worries.
on.
So that is saying, but I mean, but this graph doesn't actually reflect, because we've already had 3006.1 and that wasn't at the start of July.
yeah.
I think that was a case of we needed to get the fixes out sooner than waiting till July.
No, so totally understand why that happened, but I just wondered if, like, does that then affect when 3006.2 happens?
It should be as per the graph,
Okay, cool.
So
as I understand it.
I always assumed that this was just for show and not an actual, like, this is when it is going to be released, because holding off a point release to a certain time frame seems kind of weird when we have the ability to roll releases faster now, right? Like, we rolled 3006.1 earlier than what was on the schedule because it needed to be done. And if somebody comes through with another important bug that needs to be patched ASAP, then 3006.2 comes whenever it comes. So I feel like you could get to a point where, like, maybe 3006 has a 0.15 or something like that by the time the 3008 LTS release comes out. So I guess what's preventing us from having more frequent releases? I thought we were to a point where we could do that.
Yes, but the thing is, in a previous life, we went to very rapid releases for some server software, and we got a lot of pushback from customers that, hey, give us a break. We don't need so many releases. We haven't even finished validating the last release before you gave us another one. And so the aim here is that on a quarterly basis, essentially, you're getting a timely, consumable deliverable, every 3 months apart for the point releases. Unless, of course, some critical thing comes up, which happened with 3006.1 that we had to get it out. But the idea being, a predictable release cycle that people can schedule for and adjust and accommodate for what they need to do.
And that's specific though, because 3006 is an LTS release.
Yeah.
Understood. Okay.
Well, you can see it from the graph, October to January to April for 3007, which is an STS release.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and no
So
labels on them.
It allows some consumers have some predictability as to when to expect things.
I know I thought I understood the major releases were pretty solid, but the dot releases after, I thought this was just like a sample. I didn't realize we were every 3 months on that. I
Yes,
thought it was just like as needed.
Of course, everything's subject to change, but especially since I'm not controlling dates or anything, but this is how it was explained to me after my faux pas, Barney.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm still
And Barney, I just want to point out, I'm looking forward to when you got your PR at a draft, so that
excellent. Okay, appreciated. But yeah, I mean, it's good to know that 3006.2 isn't going to come absolutely imminently. But I guess I'm now also slightly feeling like, well, I actually think some of the a couple of the PRs I'm working on, I'd like to see somewhat sooner than October. So I'm sort of, with what Nick's saying about how frequently we should be doing point releases, I don't know. I am slightly surprised that I was also sort of of the same impression as Shane that point releases would come as and when they needed to be done rather than on quite the strict timetable.
As I understand it, for now, it's on a quarter release. That might speed up as issues with GitHub Actions, everybody gets more familiar with it. Things get better. We've proven the pipelines are really decent. There's no more hidden gotchas, that kind of thing. So that frequency could improve in the future. But for now, it's on a quarterly basis to make sure everything is smooth running.
So completely understand that side, right? But I think the side that I'm mostly concerned with, and what Barney alluded to, was living with bugs for long time periods,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
so if there's some sort of powers that be that we can get involved and invoke and say like, hey, is there some sort of happy medium that could be had here? I think that's probably the best thing for both parties, right? There's always the ability of people who are risk averse to not install a certain version, right? Like you can easily look at the release notes and say like, none of this is we really care about. But for the folks who are actively dealing with the bugs, right, like they want to see that release faster. So if there's some way that we can get to a middle space here, I think that's probably the way to do it.
Noted that you'd like to get the bugs as quickly as possible, and that will probably happen in the future. But for now, it's quarterly.
I think what they want is bug fixes faster, not bugs faster.
So I guess there's also then a question of how the sort of branching strategy works, because that then means that we've got a 3006.x branch. So that's going to not going to be the same as master for quite some time as well. So
Pedro with GitHub Actions got a really nice so that it's automated. We can just mark stuff from master with the label to backport to the branch, and it automatically does it. And the same with regular merge forwards from one branch into another. So the pain that we used to have to cherry pick and stuff, that's all automated now.
Yeah,
So
we just
it's
pop a
been
label
great.
on a PR and it'll automatically do it.
Once the
Talking
PR
about
is
the
merged,
process.
once the PR is merged in, then we can pop the label on it and away it goes. It's like, remember the days when you had to check that patch worked correctly? This goes back to the 90s. Because you weren't quite sure patch was doing the right thing. Well, nobody ever bothers to check patch anymore. I mean, they just assume it's going to work. And the same now with the merge forward and the merge back. With GitHub Actions, it's wonderful.
Barney, was your question just about like the cherry picking in all of this, or
Yeah,
there...
exactly. How it was just about how, you know, maintaining a long running release branch and how, you know, versus the master branch, and how that was going to, you know, be done cleanly and without risking dropping patches or dropping changes.
Yeah, so we've had some bad workflows in the past, and we are trying to alleviate that workload on ourselves. For example, the 2006 will be an LTS branch, so that will be in some months that will be way different than master is. The tooling that David mentioned was something that we it's an available GitHub Actions that does the work for us. It's not perfect. There are some use cases where it can actually fail, but when it fails, we at least notice that it failed, and then someone from our team goes by hand and does the cherry picking. But that's like, I don't know, 1 to 5% of all the backports that we would need to do. So that alleviates the workload there. So yeah, with regards to maintaining that, yeah, when we are reviewing, if you're submitting a fix that you know is targeting to a specific version, like this is a bug that it was introduced in 2006, then if possible, submit the pull request against 3006, and we have merge forwards as often as possible, so that we don't carry too much on a merge forward, because that was also a problem in the past. But if you do not know where that should land, someone from the team that is reviewing the issue will try to figure that out, if it's something that needs to be fixed on the master, or if it needs the backport. And with that GitHub Actions tool, we just add labels, and once it's merged in master or in the target branch, it will get backported to the other labels. So it makes it simpler for us.
Cool. So yeah, so for stuff that's targeting issues that were in 3006, then my PR should be against 3006.x branch generally, and I don't then have to worry, hopefully, too much about the fact that I also want to make sure those end up in 3007. That should hopefully just happen.
That will always happen, yes. Cool. So we don't cherry pick forward, we merge forward. So whatever is in 3006 gets merged forward to 2007.
Okay, great.
The opposite is not true. So we don't merge backwards, we cherry pick backwards. So if you were to submit a fix to the master branch, we would just cherry pick your commits. But if you submit to the 2006 branch, then all of your changes get included into the next major release.
Awesome.
Okay, we are at time. So
can I clarify one more thing just really quick?
Of course,
okay?
yeah, absolutely. Just let everybody know if you need to drop. You're more than welcome to drop. However, we can continue. I'm fine with it. You have to drop. Okay. No joke for Shane. No, you're sticking around. You gotta stick around for the joke. Anyway, Megan, please continue.
I just think there was a little bit of confusion when we were talking about the LTS release. It's documented here. Point releases every 3 months. after the GA release. So that means 3006.2 would be scheduled 3 months out from 3006.1, which would be just the August instead of the July, since we released 3006.1.
Ah, perfect. Okay, thanks.
All right, anything else?
I have another one for Pedro, if possible, if we still have
Yeah,
time.
go for it. Go for it. Yeah.
I actually, D-Wells and I chatted about this the other day. I don't know if he's talked to you about it. Do you have a sort of sensible local workflow for running the package tests at the moment? Because I've been doing some stuff where I want to run the package tests and like having to wait for CI. You know, the new CI stuff you've done, honestly, awesome, really, really, really great. But if I'm trying to fix issues with specifically with the package tests, having to wait for that is, you know, quite painful time-wise, just because it takes time. I can probably work something out, you know, building some Docker images, working out what to do to make all the tests run and so on. But if you have any existing workflow for being able to actually just simply run the package tests against some built sort of debs and RPMs, that would be awesome.
So we are aware of your pain points, like waiting for the pipeline. That's something that sadly we cannot solve. That's something that GitHub Actions does. GitHub Actions does not show us the artifacts that are getting uploaded in the pipeline until it finishes. I believe through the API, we can get access to those artifacts sooner, so we don't have to wait, because there's even some GitHub Actions that allow you to do that, but that doesn't always work. So whenever I have to do what you're suggesting, like testing against packages, often I just cancel the pipeline, which I honestly do not know if it's available to all users, in particular to the owner of the pull request. So I don't know if you can cancel the GitHub Actions workflow that is running. So if you can, just cancel it, and whatever is uploaded gets added to the artifacts once it's done. And then whenever you get to push another fix, it starts over again. As to alleviating these kinds of issues, I have an idea in the back of my mind for when there's some more free time, which is you probably noticed that we are using something it's something that we call tools. It basically reads a Python script in our repo, and we add some logic for whatever we need to do. And my idea is to like point it to a pull request to be able to download artifacts from there and place them on the right places. When I have time, I will try to work on that, because that will simplify the whole process, like getting the one dir downloaded. If you want the Knox requirements files that are used in tests, that can also get downloaded. And the same goes for the packages that will also be possible to download and place them on the places where they are expected to exist. Sadly, there isn't much time right now, and that's not yet implemented. So as for the,
what about like just building the packages locally and being able to run the tests against them?
We should be, so we can do that. The problem might be someone does not know. If they look at the pipeline and the steps that the pipeline runs, that will get you there. But yeah, if we build a package locally, we can run the tests locally.
No, yeah. So I can build a package locally. So, you know, I can pull the existing CI containers, you know, set those up, build the packages. That's fine. But then to actually run the package tests, where they run, they call, like, there's a fixture which is I think it's salt package install. I can't remember just off the top of my head. That obviously expects like the packages to be in a certain place and actually to then run those tests. That's the bit where, you know, that's the bit I actually need to be able to do locally at the moment, just to be able to iterate reasonably quickly on making changes to the package tests. And I can probably work out how to do that, but that's going to take me, a reasonable amount of time of reading through the existing CI stuff and working out where to place everything, where to place the packages, and all this sort of thing. And yeah, I guess my question was really, do you have an existing way that as DWAL says, with some more, perhaps already built packages, run the package tests locally?
Okay, so I guess the part where you're not sure on what to do is where to place the packages. Right now, the package tests, the test suite is separate because we are migrating a separate repository into Salt, and the test requirements were not the same. And so there's actually work being done to merge that into the current test suite, but that's still not done. So what you will have to do right now is place the packages under pkg/tests/artifacts, I think.
Okay.
Oh, Megan just posted something. Let me see if I see this. So it's either pkg/test. No, actually, I believe it's pkg/artifacts.
Yeah, that's what it is. But I believe the test run also is expecting the Salt Wonder as well, right? In artifacts. It starts it up that way.
Oh, yes, it is. So you will also have to download the Wonder and place it under that artifacts path. Extract it under that artifacts path. If you have these two things, you should be able to run the package tests.
Okay, brilliant. Great, I'll give that a go. Because that would save me a lot of time.
And if you struggle on this process, feel free to ping me.
Awesome, thank you.
And I can walk you through that.
Excellent discussion, Pedro. You're the man. Well done, Pedro. Well done, Megan. Thank you for helping out there. Okay, so if there's nothing else, and I'm guessing there's not, just real quick check. Going once, going twice. All right, Shane, if you would, sir, play us out.
Yeah, well, don't you hate it when people answer their own questions? I mean, I know I do.
We waited all that time. Shane Lee, ladies and gentlemen, he's here all weekend. Tip your waiters.
That one hurt.
That one hurt.
All right. Thanks everybody for being here. Thanks for taking the time. Great questions, great discussion. Again, this will be on YouTube, as is the case with all of our open hour, I guess, episodes, meetings, whatever you want to call it. If you have any questions about what's happening with the Salt Project website, you're more than welcome to ping me on Slack or hit me at schunga@vmware.com. Again, we'll get that up and running as soon as we possibly can. And we will see you on June 15th for the next Salt Project Community Open Hour. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your week.
Thanks.